Hey, welcome everybody. This is the Current Culture Podcast, and I'm your host, China Moore. Well, uh, this has been a week. Truthfully, I just wanted to talk about memes with you all. But as Marwan McCool once alluded to, I can't talk about memes and watch funny, goofy videos when my feed is full of violence. So this week we're going to get into some heavier stuff. So strap in, get some tea, get some snacks, and let's get into it. So, we've heard a lot about AI. We've brought it up already on this channel multiple times, and we're only on episode 3, and it's probably going to be a continuing topic into the future. So, what are we talking about this time? AI has been used to generate false videos of ICE incidents and interactions with the police and ICE. It's already a difficulty trying to parse out what's true and what's not in this current climate, trying to figure out what articles are telling the truth. So, in this whole age of trying to figure it out with false media, trying to figure out scrolling through your feed, not knowing what's real and what's not, the fact that now, in the wake of such a massive incident, we're being flooded with videos that are showing false instances of what happened during the Minneapolis incident and showing false interactions with law enforcement and with ICE officers, it makes it just that much harder to know what's real and what's not, which makes digital literacy even more important in this age of trying to know how to spot AI generated content and how to spot what is a real video and what is not. So let's get into the nitty gritty of it. In Minneapolis, there's been a shooting, fortunately, the passing of Renee Good. And if you've been online, your feed has probably been flooded with videos talking about this. And what's unfortunate is this isn't the first instance of it. There's been at least 3 people who've been fatally shot by ICE officers, as well as dozens who have been injured in these instances with interactions with ICE. It's not any like hard interaction to figure out. It's not a hard instance to realize that tensions are high between people and between communities and ICE agents, and tensions run high whenever there are conflicts or interaction with the community and ICE, and these interactions are deadly. And not to mention the fact that when we're looking at ICE officers, how much training ICE officers are getting. ICE officers only have about 8 weeks of training. So, how are we going to prevent these tragedies in the future is a big question. And it's not one that I have the sole answer to. But there's multiple dialogues and conversations to be had around this. Honestly, I've already seen people talking about the fact that why is it that Renee Good is having such a large impact? Why is this what's flooding our feed when this wasn't even the first instance of a fatal shooting? And honestly, the first answer that comes to my mind is media, what's being pushed out. But also, this isn't the first time we've seen instances like this with media and with the person who is being pushed as being the center, what stories are catching. When really, I think the thing to like keep in mind when talking about this and when thinking about these shootings and thinking about who's being the face of these outrage and who's being the face of these instances, something that comes to my mind really, it isn't surprising that violence is happening. We've already seen the interactions. We've seen the protests. We saw the Frog Brigade get pepper sprayed. We know how high the tensions are. We've seen the violent reactions. We know that these interactions are not safe. It's not even at peaceful protests, we've seen how there is such a disproportionate response to peaceful interactions. And the fact that even with this, where usually after a fatal shooting, you would have dialogue being had, you would have a discussion being like condemning the actions of a shooting, talking about the loss of life, but instead we have government entities doubling down, putting blame on the victim for their own passing. and then as well as having the governor, as well as having the local governance talking about and trying to push for peace, not just for the sake of trying to lower the temperature for their own safety, but also as to not give an excuse for more action, to not give an excuse for the National Guard to be deployed. So there's not an excuse for more violence to happen. And the violence isn't even from the community, not saying to lower the temperature to stop the community from becoming violent, but to stop the governing bodies from becoming violent. So I feel like with this, the thing to keep in mind and what this really comes down to when we're talking about this is I don't think there's any reason to be surprised that this happened. And whenever we're talking and thinking about this, the real surprise does not come from the fact that violence happened. I feel like it is the proximity to violence that happened. Whenever we saw the raids in Chicago, we saw that violence was happening. We saw families being taken out of their homes. The whole premise of ICE is in itself a very violent and abrasive system. So with this being like a narrative and a story that is being shared and reshared and talked about, it isn't the violence that's surprising. It's who the violence is being turned against that's surprising. Position and talk about Kat Blaque, which is a creator, and I especially love following her content on YouTube. A storytime creator, has wonderful and interesting takes, and recently a quote of hers has been going viral, which is, "I don't share my body with men who won't politically defend my body." And I feel like something that's very interesting about this is how it's been divorced from the original context and from the original creator. So this has been going viral. However, people have not been crediting Kat. I feel like this is something that is very reminiscent of how movements in general are represented. I mean, even just talking about Stonewall, LGBT movement, the fact that like there is a very large and very loud section that is just the LG and B who want to exclude trans people from the movement, when the people who pioneered and were working for LGBTQ plus rights were trans activists, were Black trans activists. The fact that we need the progress flag to begin with is because people were not recognizing the initial people who pushed forth the movement, as well as the fact when we're looking at things like the Black Lives Matter movement, because the premise of Black Lives Matter, when you think about this, is if people are willing to do this to Black and brown people, if people are going to push the marginalized people, take away and strip other people's rights, then what is going to stop them from stripping away your rights? So whenever we exclude those marginalized people who are pushing forth and saying and talking about these messages, divorcing from the original context that's saying it, and then those in more privileged stations are then co-opting these phrases and like repeating it without acknowledging where these statements came from, the loss of meaning that comes from that, us not acknowledging and thinking about that loss, we really are losing so much, not only context, but then we're losing so much in our thought process and how we are moving forward. We're losing the intersectionality. And I feel like it does such a disservice, not just to the people who were helping to push for rights for you, because whenever the weakest among us are protected, then the strongest among us are. It strengthens all of us. But also, I feel like you lose so much context that can strengthen your own understanding of the messages that you've learned and that you are restating. I think that's something that we can all learn from. So something that's been on my mind in relation to this is the conditions in these facilities and how the lack of humanity that we have as like a society put in in managing these facilities, as well as like whenever we think of like we place so much effort and so much of our own like moral into like this moral supremacy that is the United States. We even it makes me think of back like how much we are putting into institutions and how much institutions are putting back into us, which makes me think about an anecdote even of me and my cousin. Whenever we were driving, we went on a road trip and we went through a town and we did a counting of like who can spot the most churches versus schools. And within like a 20-minute drive, we were able to find 20 churches, but we could not, for the life of us, locate where the school was. And it's like all we could find were all these bus stop signs, but we could not find one school. However, every like block there was another church. And it's like churches can do so much for society. But then where are we placing our resources and our services in when we think about this? And something that's been weighing on my mind is I saw a post that was a pastor who was going, I think he was like a Catholic priest who was talking to people who were in an ICE facility and him going to pray, in the fact that like just not being able to support and comfort those who were in the facility, as well as the fact that there was a church right beside the ICE facility. And when asking, does this church go to the facility? Does the church support them? And the response from the guards being like, why would they? And it's like, if it's about the moral supremacy, if it's about what morals as a country we have, that this is about the morals, then it's clearly not. Whenever this is the response from a humanitarian standpoint, we're not providing basic living conditions. We're not ensuring people are being treated safe. We're not making sure that they're being fed. People are not being treated with basic human dignity. That from a humanitarian standpoint, we're not doing what we're supposed to. Then also, if you're trying to do this from like a moral standpoint, we claim this moral superiority, but at the same time, we're not following it through with our actions. Like, I remember passing every block, like, there's so many churches on way just to work in the morning, and each one has, like, a message of, like, letting God be a way for you to help others, but then how are we showing up when we allow violence, and when violence is so prevalent in society, and there's harm being done? We are not looking for ways to support other people. And something that sticks out is whenever we're talking about how normalized violence is currently, is I saw a post that was from an educator. I'm so sorry, I do not remember your name, but what you said stuck with me, which was how none of this is surprising to the youth. None of these actions and none of these news headlines are surprising to kids, because during this shooting, kids were on lockdown. And that's not their first lockdown. It hasn't been their last lockdown. This isn't a surprising thing for them because this is just reality. This is how kids are growing up now. That they are used to violence happening. They are used to this being their daily normal. It's not surprising to kids in this day and age that someone hurt someone else. And that's just daily life. And that's really something that's heavy. When you just sit and think about that, that's heavy. Because I didn't, like, whenever I first started, I didn't grow up with shooter drills. That came in high school. Like, think about how normalized those drills were. But then the older I got, the more active drills we started to have. Then we had more shelter in place drills the older I got. And that's something that's terrifying. That's not something that you think of as being normal, but it's terrifying how something that seems so natural can become your normal the more you're introduced to it. So whenever you think of a scenario that's, oh, this could never happen, this is outrageous, the more you're exposed to it, that becomes your normal. And if anyone can adapt the fastest, it's children. And they know and are recognizing the scenario and how we are existing now as a society faster than anyone. But also, it makes me come to mind and think of the fact of the nature of compassion. I know whenever you hear these stories, everyone is up in arms and telling you that, like, you need to do something right now. And that's terrifying. You may not want to. What are you going to do? And it's like, why is it my responsibility to fix the world that I was just handed? I didn't mess it up, so why do I have to be the one to fix it? And ironically, one of the better stories about how to solve this is present in Adventure Time. If you've ever seen the Lemon Hope episode, there you go. That literally is talking about this exact topic. At Lessons of actually gives a really great summary of this because compassion isn't something that can be forced, it has to be given. So the idea of this is your problem. Yes, we gave you freedom, but the freedom was with baggage. The freedom is something that you have to pay for. Well, then it's not actually freedom. You can't, it's not true compassion unless it's something that you yourself want to give to someone. It's not a true act of your own unless you have your own initiative and desire to give it. So whenever someone is telling you that you must act, this is your responsibility, you must fix it, really you should be examining the weight you're placing on someone to be the solver, which also makes me think of like the weight that we place on our youth, that literally every generation we tell, well, you're going to be the generation to fix it. Well, it's on you now. You are the hope. That is why I worked so hard, is so you could be the one to fix it next time. What type of gift is that? A gift that comes with restrictions, a gift that is weighed down by obligation. What type of gift are you giving? It's not exactly a great gift when you really think about it. That's just weight. You're just placing weight on the other person. And that's not to say that compassion isn't something that you can't have and you can't grow. And that isn't to say that the sacrifices that you make for other people aren't worth it. There's still value in the sacrifice, but it's the desire for someone to grow on their own. And then after they find their desire, after they fulfill what their mission is, they come to their own decision to make a change because they've looked at the situation, they've seen what's happening, and they want to make a change out of their own volition, not because someone told them to. And I feel like that's a perspective that we need to consider more. Of instead of placing so much responsibility on the next generation to fix it, why are we not fixing it for this generation? I feel like in this climate, it is even more than ever the desire to escape, whether it is to hide under the covers and close the door, shut the windows, and pretend that the world isn't on fire, you know, uh, pretend that everyone isn't angry, crying all the time, the desire to disassociate. It's hard enough. And honestly, going to therapy is important, but it's hard to go to your therapist and just be like, well, the world kind of sucks right now. What am I supposed to do about that? There's only so much. Fixing the world is, after a while, that's the actual solution, is fixing the world. It's not just you, babe. The world is kind of burning a little bit. It's not, it's a natural response to not be okay to this. So, whenever the world's burning, how are you supposed to put out the fire? Like, and then even that, how do you not zone out? Because honestly, it is hard enough just to get up, try to make rent. Like that's hard enough. Is just trying to struggle to make rent, put food on the table, and survive. Let alone deal with anything else. Let alone deal with the fact that people that you've known for your entire life are not here anymore. To deal with the fact that housing is going up, to deal with the fact that people that you love are losing their homes. How are you supposed to support the other people in your community when you can barely support yourself? It makes sense to be exhausted. I am exhausted. It makes sense to tune out. If you tune out forever, things are only going to get worse. And I understand the feeling and desire and the need to escape and run away. But where are you running away to? The fact is, the same systems that are leading to the turmoil here are the same systems that are going to impact the turmoil everywhere else. It is literally the same people. It is not race war, it is class war. The same people are holding the money. And the things that you think are just on a small scale here are actually persistent internationally. You will see the same trends across the globe. You will be surprised whenever you realize how big the problem actually is. And a lot of times you already know. It's just the fact that, honestly, I want to care about the world, but honestly, it's exhausting just to care about yourself. So it tracks. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to close your laptop, close your phone. It's okay to zone out. As long as you remember that at some point you have to come back. There are still people here who are waiting for you. There are still people who want to support you. There are people who are fighting with you. Everyone is struggling right now. People have been struggling. The same issues that are happening now have been happening for years. And you know what? That's exhausting to know. But also, that means that we've had a heck of a lot of time to practice. You have a community. You have the tools to keep fighting. There's a reason why rest is revolutionary. You rest so that you have the time to fight another day. So rest so you can fight another day. So we did it. Well, we made it through the video. The rest of the problems are still there, and we're still making it through. But one thing's for sure, Leslie, I'll be there next week. Hopefully you'll be there too. And we'll make it through together. And hopefully next week we'll be talking about something a lot lighter, a lot funnier. Just because things are hard doesn't mean they'll always be. I got you, and you got me. So, like, subscribe, and we'll make it through. See you next week.